And welcome, everybody. Hands-on Apologetics. You have entered into Virgin Most Powerful Apologetics Dojo. We're going to talk about saints, not necessarily Christian saints, but Old Testament saints. Many of you may not be familiar that, yes, the Maccabean martyrs are heralded as saints. And also there were Old Testament saints, at least the old rite. So who are these saints? We're going to focus in on two, I think, of the most fascinating figures in the Old Testament, Elijah and Elisha, and there's no one better than master apologist Steve Ray to do this. Steve, as you well know, is the host of the Footprints of God video series. He also hosts pilgrimages. He's the author of numerous books, some very important apologetic works like Crossing the Tiber, On This Rock, and his latest book, The Papacy, What the Pope Does and Why It Matters. You can check out all his great stuff at www.catholicconvert.com. And Steve Ray, welcome back to Hands On Apologetics.
Thank you, Gary Michuta. Glad to be here. And I like these two guys. I followed them around the world, so good to talk about them.
Yeah, you have a video that features them. Tell me a little bit about making the video.
There it is. That is a movie that we made a year or two ago. Am I getting it right in there? There we go. And it's called Elijah and Elisha. But see, Catholics usually call him Elisha, and as a Protestant, I grew up calling him Elisha. Oh. But, when we made the movie, I had to remember to call him Elisha, simply because with the wind blowing and with speaking to the camera, Elijah and Elisha sound way too close. And it's hard to make people, did he say Elijah or did he say Elisha? So we did the Catholic pronunciation, but my wife had to keep saying, cut, you said Elisha. You got to say Elisha. So we'd have to do it over.
Yeah, that's just like Augustine, too. Protestants usually say Augustine. Yep. We say Augustine. Yep,
that's right. Yep. And I think Elisha is correct, because that's what I understand it is in Hebrew, or in the original language. It would have been Elisha. But I also didn't like it because it sounds like a girl's name, because Elisha is also a girl's name spelled different. So, and he's anything but girly, this guy.
Yeah, that's true.
Anything but girly.
So if anybody's not familiar with your video, I mean, you did tremendous work on it. I mean, you're on location. What do you cover?
It took us a year pretty much to make it. And the reason we chose them is I did Abraham, which starts with creation and works through Abraham, and Isaac and Jacob, ends up on their way to Egypt. The movie, then the next one was Moses, which starts out in Egypt and works through the Exodus around Jericho, conquering Jericho and into the Promised Land. And then we did the third one was David and Solomon, which gives you an idea of the kings and the whole structure of the beginning of the kingdom of Israel. And Elijah and Elisha cover about 1,000 years. They cover pretty much from 800 BC to the time of John the Baptist and Mary. So these guys, in doing this 90-minute movie, we wanted to cover that whole section of the Bible, the later kings and the prophets. And Elijah's the father of the prophets, so he's kind of the main one, and then all the others follow after him. He's kind of he's the best, he's the most well-known. He's kind of the prototype of all the rest of them. He's the beginning. And we had to film it. We were on the road 20 days in 3 countries, staying at 7 hotels. Had a lot of miracles take place along the way, but it was filmed in Israel and a lot of the Palestinian areas. Also, we filmed it in Jordan and in Egypt. Part of it in the Sinai. We went up Mount Sinai and found the place where Elijah actually met God up there. And then we also went and found the tomb of Elisha and John the Baptist, which is in the monastery of St. Macarius out in the deserts of Egypt. So we covered a lot of territory, covered the whole story. And if you want to see these two prophets and kind of like go on a pilgrimage, since you can't do it in an airplane and a bus, you're going to see it kind of in a better way here anyway, because you're going to see things here I would never be able to take a group to show them.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point, too, because with your video series, you really do feel like you are right there on the spot. You do such a great job. And, probably now through the COVID crisis, most people are running out of things to watch on Netflix. This is a great way to fortify your faith, and it's very entertaining too.
And it's you could go on a pilgrimage. I say that if you start with Abraham, and they're on my website, they got a good deal on them. You get one free if you buy the 8, you get the 9th one free. They all have a complete study guide in them, so you won't find a study guide like this on Elijah and Elisha anywhere. And the one on Mary obviously has a very complete Mary study guide, and Abraham has each one has their own study guide. So I got the Old Testament covers through Abraham, Moses, David, and Solomon, Elijah, and Elisha. Then the New Testament covers Mary, because Mary's in the middle. Her and John the Baptist, they're not Old Testament, they're not New Testament. They're in the middle. They're kind of like this big bridge between the Old and the New Testament. So it starts with Mary, then goes to Jesus, called Word Became Flesh, and then Peter, Keeper of the Keys. And then we do Paul, which I filmed in 6 countries, and then Apostolic Fathers. And that's the first Christians, are the guys from the 1st century and into the beginning of the 2nd. And then we still have to film Doctors of the Church, but I'm having to postpone that for another year or two because of all this hysteria.
Yeah, right.
So people can actually go on a pilgrimage. If you want to go on a pilgrimage to the Holy Land and way beyond, you want to do a pilgrimage study, go through the whole story of the Bible, from creation and the Old Testament, New Testament into the early church. These are fun. They're energetic. I wrestle snakes. I fall in the mud. I ride and fall off horses. I climb trees. I pour oil over my head. I even, in this one, I eat grasshoppers.
And how was it, by the way?
They were tasty. If you in real life, Gary, once when I was in Israel and I was telling the group, I said John the Baptist ate grasshoppers and wild honey. Now, the reason it comes up in the movie John the Baptist is because he's kind of the fulfillment of Elijah. Elijah and John the Baptist are like Old and New Testament parallels. Then we really bring that out in the story, the typology between those two. And we know that John the Baptist ate grasshoppers. So I was in the movie, I'm frying up a pan of something. You don't know what it is. I'm sitting in front of a campfire and I'm cooking and it's sizzling away. And I'm eating, wow, this is really good. These grasshoppers are delicious. And I was starting to talk about what John the Baptist ate. But one time when I was out at Qumran, which is only 2 miles away from the place where John the Baptist baptized. And by the way, that's the same place that Elijah went up into heaven. I said to these guys, hey, if anybody catches a grasshopper, I'll eat it because I love living the Bible in the Holy Land. Well, these 4 smart Alecks, they went out and they found a big 4-inch wiggly grasshopper like this, and they brought him back to me. And Janet says, what are you going to do now, Steve? I said, I keep my word, and if John the Baptist and Mary and Jesus can eat them, so can I. And I chucked him in, and I ate him. His legs were kicking out, and I chewed him up and swallowed him. So anybody that goes on a future pilgrimage, I did it once. I don't need to do it twice. I got it recorded on video. That was enough.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's a great point, too, because there is this strong typology between Elijah, who's such a mysterious figure, and John the Baptist. What about Elijah's successor, Elisha?
Elisha and Jesus are parallels.
Okay.
So you have John the Baptist represents Elijah, and Jesus is kind of following after Elisha. There's parallels there. Interestingly enough, John the Baptist was baptizing, and when I take our group